continue. Let's read first Maccabees chapter 1. Information is there, and we have history to back it up also. So, and prophecies. But let's continue. And it says, and it happened after the Alexander, son of Philip, the Macedonian. Now we do know that Alexander was an Edomite, right? He was not a Macedonian. He was ruling the Macedonians, to be exact. But that doesn't make him a Macedonian. Alright? Because remember, many Edomites were called Macedonians also. An example to that. Before we continue, when you go into the additions to Esther, I believe it was Haman was called a Macedonian also. They are saying many Edomites were called Macedonians, especially in that time of the ruling, because they were ruling, right? Like Alexander, who took over Greek, who took over Greece, who destroyed Darius the king, which we read in here. But let's go into the I believe we go into a bit of the additions to Esther first, right? Yeah, but addition to Esther in the Apocrypha, Esther, Haman was called a Macedonian. Let's get a precept one time. I just want to make sure you have that information before you continue. Alright, a perfect example. 16 and verses 10. Alright, it says, and Haman, or Aman, which is known as Haman, a Macedonian, the son of Adatha, being indeed a stranger from the Persian blood and far distant from our goodness, and as a stranger received of us. So what was he called? A Macedonian. Let's also jump down to verses 14. It says, for by these means he thought, finding us destitute of friends, to have translated the kingdoms of the Persians to the Macedonian. So you see, let's continue, because when you go back into the Old Testament, in the book of Esther, we know him to be an Agagite. Now let's grab that real quick, because we have to take the time and go back into it. Alright, so we have book of Esther, Old Testament. We are chapter 3, I believe, on verses 1. We could jump because the aim is to get information fast. We could jump. It says, after these things did King Asarius promote Haman, the son of Hammedatha, the Agagite, and advanced him and set his seat above all the princes that were with him. So, what was Haman called? An Agagite. Because he was an Agagite, which would have been a descendant of, I believe it's Agag, which would be an Amalek, which descends from Esau, Edom. Or I believe the son of Eliphaz, to be exact, which is same thing. But we can grab that soon. Let's make sure and keep this information clear. Jump to verse 10. It says, and the king took his ring from his hand and gave it to Haman, the son of Hammedatha, the Agagite, the Jews' enemy. Straight to the point. So it says the Jews' enemy, which is an Edomite, by the way. So the Jews' enemy. Jump down to Esther chapter 8, and we continue to verses 3. And it says, and Esther spake yet again before the king, and fell down at his feet, and besought him with tears to put away the mischief of Haman the Agagite. Alright? And his device that he had devised against the Jews. So you're seeing proof upon proof. I don't think we need to continue after this, right? Because we already understand that Haman was an Agagite. Now the question is, and the Agagites are of the chief tribe, which we know to be Amalek. This is one of the reasons why Yahweh did tell Saul to slay what? All the Amalekites. But what did Saul do? He spared Agag, the king of the Amalekites. Let me grab in Psalms real quick. First Samuel. Select First Samuel chapter 15 and verses 1 to 3. Well, let's get to the point 1 to 3. It says, Samuel also said unto Saul, he said, Yahweh sent me to atone thee to be the king over his people, over Israel. Now therefore hearken thou unto the voice of the word of Yahweh. Thus saith Yahweh of hosts, I remember that which Amalek did to Israel, how he laid wait for him in the way when he came up from Egypt. Now go and smite Amalek and utterly destroy all that they have, and spare them not, but slay both men and woman, infant and suckling, ox and sheep, camel and ass. And what did Saul, I keep going because what did Saul do? I keep going. And he took Agag, the king of the Amalekites, alive, and utterly destroyed all the people with the edge of the sword. And Saul and the people spared Agag, which was the king himself, and the best of the sheep, and the oxen, and of all the fatlings of the lambs, and all that was good, and would not utterly destroy them, but everything that was vile and refused, they destroyed utterly. So, you're seeing that he was spared. Let's keep going. Let's jump to verse 22. It says, And Samuel said, Had Yahweh as great delight in burnt offerings and sacrifice as obeying the voice of Yahweh? Behold, to obey is better than sacrifice, and to hearken than the fat of rams. Because if he would have obeyed as he should have, because Amalek is our enemy from the beginning, and the purpose of the Father, especially to protect Israel, is to get rid of our enemies, then he would have taken heed. Therefore, he wouldn't have to wonder after, why is the Spirit removed from me? I can't sense my power anymore. Something is wrong. He wouldn't have to say, let me then go to the fortune teller to find out, and go into what we know as idolatry. Witchcraft. Because verse 23, it says, For rebellion, again, is as a sin of witchcraft, and stubbornness is as iniquity and idolatry. Right there. Because thou hast rejected the word of Yahweh, he had also rejected thee from being a king. So, but let not stray. Let's keep it to that point. And where did the Amalekites come from? Because we're now understanding something here. But before we continue and keep going into it, where did the Amalekites come from? Let's get our precept in Genesis chapter 36 and verses 12. Get straight to the point, and it says, right there, And Timnah was concubine to Eliphaz, Esau's son. And she bare to Eliphaz Amalek. These were the sons of Adah, Esau's wife. So Amalek is what created the Amalekites, which is also why we have Amalek in the land of Israel today, professing to be us, which we know as the Jewish small hatters. They are the Amalek, or Amalekites, if you want to put it in proper ancient terms, biblical terms. They're descendants of Esau, Edom. Heavy descendants of it too. In fact, verse 15, it even makes it, let me see verse 15 here. They even give them of the title of Duke Amalek, which of course we see many in England. I believe the Prince was also referred to as a duke because that is their descendants. And notice one thing in their descendants, look at the complex, not to say, but back then that's how they were, read all over like a hairy garment. Though many of them do appear to be like us because of intermingling with the other nations, of course. But Eliphaz, as you stand not stray, is Amalek is Eliphaz's son, which are descendants of Esau. Hence, the Amalekites. So of course, Agag being the king, which I believe Haman will be a descendant of. So Agag, that's why Haman was known as the Agagite, because Agag is what? The head of the Agagites, which was the head at the time of the Amaleks. They are none other than Esau. But the descendants of Agag will be the Agagites. You understand where I'm coming from? So, just like the same thing with Alexander. Alexander is a Edomite. He's not a Macedonian. Though they were called Macedonian, doesn't mean the descendants goes back to Macedonia. They were Amaleks. So all I'm trying to show you. So let's continue. And now we could go into this information now. Now that we passed that stage, let's grab back into First Maccabees. First Maccabees chapter 1 again and verses 1. And this information here is 100% lines up with historical accuracy, and that historical accuracy also lines up with prophecy and biblical standpoints. So let's read it. Let's get into it. Alright. So it says First Maccabees chapter 1 and verses 1. It happened after the son Alexander, the son of Philip, the Macedonian, who came out of the land of Chittim, had smitten Darius the king, the Darius king of the Persians and Medes, because they were ruling at the time, of course. And of course, Alexander the Great came and what? Destroyed them. Alright? That he reigned in his stead, the first over Greece. Here it says, and made many wars, and won many strongholds, and slew the kings of the earth. The kings of the other nations that would have either tried against him, or that other nation that was ruling other places at that time. He set forth to conquer every single one of them. And he did. That military might, that strong conqueror's power, is what was used at that time, and he had full control over these nations. Alright? Let's continue. And went through the ends of the earth and took spoils of many nations, in so much that the earth was quiet before him. They were afraid. Whereupon he was exalted in his heart, and his heart was lifted up. And he gathered a mighty strong host, and ruled over countries and nations and kings, who became tributaries unto him. So you see, let's continue as to what took place after. After that, these things, he fell sick and perceived that he should die, which of course he did. But let's continue. It says, verse 6. We start at verses 7. No, we start at verses 10. And then we will get some information, right? It says, wherefore he called his servants, such as were honorable and had been brought up with him from his youth, and parted his kingdom among them who he was yet alive. Which, as we know, the four generals, but let's continue. Alexander reigned 12 years and then died. So he did not last long. I believe when I go into the history, he would be about 32 or 33 years when he died. So he would have died at a youngish age, right? That is considered a young age. To die at 32 and 33, you haven't lived a full life, as people say. So, but everybody had their time, and that was his. So, let's continue. It says, and after his death, they put crowns upon themselves, that is, the generals that he appointed. So did their sons after them. This is important. Many years and evils were multiplied in the earth. So it took a while, some time. And there came out of them a evil root. Antiochus, surnamed Epiphanes, son of Antiochus the king, who had been a hostage at Rome, and he reigned in the 137th year of the kingdom of the Greeks.